What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, we have undefeated IBF newly crowned welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, the phenom, as I refer to him, Jaron Boots Ennis, who is 31 wins, no losses, no draws. He is 28 big wins by way of knockout. 26 years of age, 5'10" with a 74-inch arm reach. Jaron Boots Ennis has the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox, extremely versatile, and in my opinion, and some may argue, but I think that Jaron Boots Ennis is the best athlete at his size and with his versatility that we have seen in the sport of boxing since Roy Jones Jr., legendary retired iconic Hall of Fame superstar boxer. So since then is the last time we saw a fighter of the caliber of, with the athletic ability, the power, the hand speed, the foot speed, the ring IQ, the size, since Roy Jones, who was 5'11", 74-inch arm reach. Roy Jones Jr. is the only fighter in boxing history to move up from 154 pounds and become a heavyweight world champion. Today's time, Jaron Boots Ennis gets compared to another guy who he's trying to fight, and that's undefeated 3-division world champion, 2-division undisputed world champion, who is still the unified welterweight world champion and widely acknowledged and recognized as the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world in Terence Bud Crawford. Terence Bud Crawford is 40 wins, no loss, no draw, 31 big wins by way of knockout, 36 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. With that said, there's a lot of chatter and going back and forth between Terence Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis. Terence Crawford, Jaron Boots Ennis is elevated to the IBF champion. He was the IBF international champion and the mandatory challenger for Terence Bud Crawford's biggest rival, nemesis, and the guy he just beat July 29th, Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena, in former unified 3-belt WBA, WBC, IBF welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Earl the Truth Spence Jr. Earl the Truth Spence Jr. is now 28 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout, 33 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. They fought in a highly anticipated, undisputed, undefeated welterweight showdown. Terence Crawford was the victor in dominating fashion. Jaron Ennis was the IBF mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. He could have been the World Boxing Organization WBO mandatory challenger for Terence Bud Crawford. But Jaron Boots Ennis is signed with, at that time, Showtime president of sports Steven Espinosa, and they partnered with Premier Boxing champion, founder and advisor Al Heyman, PBC, and TGB Promotions, Tom Brown Promotions, okay? He's not exclusively signed, that being Jaron Ennis, to Al Heyman and PBC. He's signed to now the late Cameron Duncan, who just recently passed, and Showtime. Showtime decided to get out the business of the sport of boxing after 37 years, and Cameron Duncan just passed. So he doesn't have a promotional company that he signed to and obligated with, nor does he have a network, right? Now, he could have made himself the WBO mandatory challenger for Terence Crawford, but he went the route of Errol Spence and the International Boxing Federation route, because Errol Spence is also with the PBC, Premier Boxing Champion, and Al Heyman and Showtime. So it made it easy. And at the time, Errol Spence was the bigger draw out of Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis. So he chose the path of Errol Spence. That didn't work out for him in the aspect of getting the big fights. He could have put himself in position to already fight, upset, and uproot the Terence Crawford-Errol Spence highly anticipated fight by putting himself in position to be the WBO mandatory challenger, forcing Terence Crawford to fight him because Terence Crawford wanted to fight Errol Spence for undisputed, and uprooting that. But he went the route of Errol Spence. Errol Spence decided that he was going to stay on the shelf and wait for Terence Crawford. Nobody wanted to, that being the IBF, strip Errol Spence before he had the Terence Crawford fight. Just like they weren't going to strip Terence Crawford of the WBO title, right? He went the IBF route. Now, the problem is he's been elevated as Terence Crawford has inherited Jaron Ennis as his mandatory. Terence Crawford dominated Errol Spence, but in the contract leading up into the Errol Spence fight, they both agreed that the loser has the right to activate an immediate rematch clause, which will force the winner to have to obligate to fight the loser, but will get automatically a bigger share of the pot. And that's what happened with this fight. Errol Spence activated the rematch clause, which means Terence Crawford doesn't have the ability to fight Jaron Ennis because he has to fulfill his obligation to Errol Spence. So he got stripped of the IBF title. Jaron Ennis got elevated. Terence Crawford recently came out and he made the statements that Jaron Ennis had the opportunity to fight me twice. He didn't take it. The first opportunity obviously was going the WBO route. He chose to go the IBF route. The second opportunity was negotiations, soft negotiations, but negotiations between BOK Prime and Showtime Steven Espinosa that actually took place for a fight with Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis, as Terence Crawford was unsure what was going to happen next with the Errol Spence fight as it fell through after he beat David Avanesian. Prior to beating David Avanesian, the negotiations fell through, hence the reason why he fought David Avanesian. After that, he wasn't sure what was going to come of the negotiations because they weren't looking to budge on the business side of it. And so what happened was Terence Crawford was looking to stay active. On the part of Terence Crawford, BOK was allowed to negotiate and try to make a fight for Jaron Ennis, which Steven Espinosa stated there wasn't a date available to stage the fight, and he wanted to be in control. So that negotiations fell through, and before it can pick back up, the fight that everybody was already anticipating seeing and the fight that Terence Crawford, Errol Spence wanted, they went back in negotiations and they got a deal done. So you got Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. So on the part of Jaron Ennis, did he turn down Terence Crawford? No. Did his father, trainer, and manager, Bozy Ennis, turn down Terence Crawford? No. Did Steven Espinosa state that there wasn't any dates available to make that fight immediately at the time? Yes. Did Steven Espinosa want to be in full control of Terence Crawford, Errol Spence? Yes. Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis? Yes. Is it a conflict of interest to negotiate for Jaron Ennis on the part of Steven Espinosa to fight Terence Crawford when Errol Spence and Al Heyman and PBC have a vested interest in making that fight? Yes. So it didn't come to fruition, nonetheless. On the flip side of that, Terence Crawford, he stated, you had two opportunities to fight me. You fight in theaters, not on big stage. Make it make sense. Jaron Ennis just recently responded by saying, send me the contract, right? And I'll sign it. And everybody's saying Terence Crawford needs to send him the contract since Terence Crawford recently responded to claims made and statements made by Errol Spence as to why Errol Spence came up short, as Errol Spence stated that he had broken ribs, he had an eye injury, a lot going into the Terence Crawford fight, where Terence Crawford feels slighted. He feels like he's not getting his just due. So Terence Crawford responded to Errol Spence saying, I'm glad I heard it all from Errol Spence. I'm glad we got it done and it's over now. Congratulations to you moving forward. Wish you well. Meaning that I don't want to do the rematch, and we don't know what the contract states and what's the time frame to make the rematch. With that said, Jaron Ennis responds and says, send me the contract and I'll sign it. And everybody immediately said, well, if he ain't going to fight Errol Spence, then he needs to fight Terence Crawford needs to fight Jaron Ennis. The problem with that is it sounds good when Jaron Ennis says send the contract, and it sounds good for everybody to say, let's make the fight happen. The facts remain is that where and how? How can Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis fight? Why do you say that? Because Jaron Ennis is not signed to the PBC. The PBC had to find a new platform to stage their fighters and their brand, showcase their brand, right? Which is now partnered up with Amazon. But Jaron Ennis has not signed to the PBC, which means they don't have any dates and plans for Jaron Ennis right now, currently as it stands, because he recently is negotiating with Matchroom CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn. There's no way he can have those conversations if he already signed with the PBC. So that's an indication that he did not. His current manager, Cameron Duncan, transitioned recently. Showtime got out the business of sport after 37 years. So he don't have a network and a company to fight on. Right? Terence Crawford is a network promotional free agent. He is not signed to the PBC, which means, and first and foremost, Al Heyman's first interest is going to be to make the fight with now Errol Spence and Terence Crawford for Errol Spence to get his get back. Now, Steven Espinosa is not in the equation because Showtime is out the business. So Al Heyman is going to negotiate a fight with two fighters that are not his to stage them on Amazon. That doesn't make sense. Terence Crawford is not going back to Top Rank with legendary promoter, Top Rank CEO Bob Arum and ESPN. So where are they going to go to stage this fight? They don't have a network. So again, like I said, it sounds good to say, let's make this fight happen next. But where are they going to fight? They will have to fight on, you got it, BOK Prime, right? Or DAZN. Now, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and DAZN in Saudi Arabia is a possibility. But that's where it ends. So we got to see, before we jump to conclusions and saying that Terence Crawford is ducking Jaron Ennis or Jaron Ennis is ducking Terence Crawford currently as it stands because Jaron Ennis has sent a contract and I'll sign it. How? Who's Terence Crawford sending his contract through? And who's he sending it to? Let's make it make sense. Right? Terence Crawford doesn't have a network. He doesn't have a promotional company. He's not signed with the PBC. He's obligated for the rematch with Errol Spence. So how are they going to fight? And where? We got to make it make sense. And that's all I got for y'all. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. There's no way Al Heyman is going to negotiate around Errol Spence rematch that Errol Spence wants to negotiate a fight with two fighters that he don't have signed. Now, unless Jaron Ennis and Terence Crawford sign a lucrative deal with Al Heyman and the PBC, other than that, it ain't happening. Or it's going to happen on BLK or DAZN. Now, it could go to DAZN with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. That's a possibility. But what's going to come of the Errol Spence rematch? And how's that going to fare going back and trying to do business for either one of those guys with Al Heyman? Because, again, Al Heyman still has the biggest stable of named fighters in and around both of these guys' weight classes. So how's that going to work out? Let's make it make sense. That's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. That's all I got for y'all. I'm gone. Peace.